Well, I think the future of prefab is very bright. Although it's currently a single-digit percentage of total construction here in the US, we definitely lag behind Europe and Asia, but I believe it's rapidly growing in both interest and in adoption. As part of the global effort to digitize everything, the real estate industry has started to adopt technologies, I believe, at a very fast pace recently. Just kind of in the last 5 years, we've seen an explosion of prop tech companies. And then you have the subcategory, the creation of Contech, which has entrepreneurs and capital relentlessly looking for better ways to build. And prefab, I believe, is an important part of that because there's been a lot of increased attention and new projects that are starting in places where you didn't see prefab before, like the hometown that I'm in right now, New York City. So I'm excited. I mean, I think it couldn't have been at a better time. You mentioned that we're seeing housing shortages, and that's true not just in the US, but all over the globe, particularly affordable housing. Yep. And if you couple that with all kinds of environmental concerns that I think there is a greater awareness for these days, because building and construction accounts for a very big percentage. I believe it's 40% of global carbon emissions. And then coincidentally, typically 40% of construction materials end up in landfills. So the future of prefab is great, not only for the built world, but I think also for the environment generally.
And you, Salla, how do you see that?
I see it very much the same way as Robert. I think that the future of prefab is very bright, but there is a lot of work to do in different markets. I oftentimes say that real estate industry is always global, but the construction industry is local. I think that we are shifting more towards being local as construction industry, because prefabricated articles, components, modules can be easily shipped from one market to another, and that way support cross-pollination of knowledge across the world. When thinking about prefabrication from people's side, I think that that's a great opportunity for using the knowledge that the tradespeople already have accumulated over the hundreds of years that construction industry has existed. And now that we are going through the digital transformation, and at the same time, there is the generational transformation that we have baby boomers retiring from the industry, prefabrication is filling the gap that might exist if we were continuing to just build on site. And with the prefabrication, we can keep the workers safer as things are developed and manufactured in controlled factory conditions. And then if thinking about prefabrication from business side, the emergence of smart environments is a huge deal. Having sensors and technology embedded already into the prefabricated components and materials, I think that's a great opportunity. And that way, from a real estate owner's point of view, even if the real estate owners generally were not ready to build smart environments as is, the prefabricators can already build that capability into the existing buildings, the new buildings that are now being built. And that way, as the industry matures more and understands more about smart places, smart buildings, and smart cities, the capability is already in the prefabricated built environment. So I am truly excited about what is going to happen in the next few years in prefabrication.
And how do cats look into the future of prefab? Because I see you have a nice cat with you.
Yes, sorry, I have my Bengal cat. She joins all the important conferences and seminars and webinars. So I'm trying to keep her calm by stroking her a little bit, but I hope she's not a distraction to us.
No, she's not. But I just saw her coming in the view, so it's great to have her also with us. So, but we talked also about the digital building life cycle. What do you mean by that, Salla?
Yeah, the digital building life cycle is a new framework that is intended to bridge the traditional silos of different stakeholders and really clarify to people that what does the digital transformation actually mean all the way from the planning to BIM-centric design and engineering, digital construction, and then digital real estate, and how we can accumulate the data in a way that when the owners start to adapt to digital twins, they can then plug in the IoT networks, IoE networks, GIS platforms, reality capture, etc. All the great components that are maybe existing technologies as is, but there's a lot of emerging technology and innovation happening with the legacy systems. So the digital building lifecycle means that we are accumulating relevant digital truth so that when we are handing over our legacy as professionals in the industry to the next generation of professionals, we are not creating a gap in knowledge, but we are actually supporting them make better decisions that we were capable of doing when it was our time to build something. And that way we continue improving as the next cycle begins.
Yeah, so what is in it for the real estate professionals to start working within this prefabrication or digital building life cycle? Robert, what do you see?
Well, I mean, there are a myriad advantages. Some of them were mentioned already, but right now I think one that I think is very important is the worker safety issues. You're building under factory conditions, and it avoids a lot of the issues during on-site construction, particularly in places where there's severe weather conditions, and just the general safety and quality that you have under factory conditions. But it's not. It goes beyond the employees, which is I think critical, which is why I started there. But you also look at the general promise of prefab construction is the schedule and cost savings. And the key schedule saving is the fact that while you're building the building in the factory under these conditions, you're able to prep the site and build the concrete foundation. And so all of that is done simultaneously as opposed to being done in a serial fashion. And if you can shave weeks and months off of a construction project, you can see pretty clearly how that translates into cost savings, into savings on financing of construction, and you're able to either sell or rent or use the building faster. But I think there's other advantages that are very important. For example, just the general predictability of the schedule. So what enables it was mentioned before, what enables buildings to get built is labor. But if you're in a situation like we are in the United States, where the average age of construction workers is now in the mid-40s, which is young, very young, but compared to other industries, it's simply much harder to find labor, particularly skilled labor, for construction. I think that's something that is not just true here, but in many places. And so the idea of being able to shift labor from the site where the conditions are worse, where there's much more congestion, and it's just harder to get things done and to move as much as you can to the factory is a big advantage. It also obviously reduces the site disruption for the people who are around the site, whether it's noise, pollution. I mentioned before the sustainability aspects of doing prefab construction. You're basically laser cutting materials that you need for the project, and you don't have all that debris and waste because you're only using the materials that you need. And that kind of precision is a big advantage for owners and really for everyone in the construction ecosystem.
So we have a lot of advantages, but there is, of course, also some obstacles because not everybody is using it yet. So what are the obstacles to, what are we facing now to really adapt this future of prefabrication?
There certainly are. I mean, I think one of the main obstacles to the adoption of prefab is you do have resistance from a very important stakeholder in projects, and that's the owners. You have a reluctance. It's probably driven by a mistaken belief or a misperception about prefab materials with regard perhaps to their sturdiness and their quality. I think there are still owners, for example, in the US when it comes to the residential sector who believe that prefab homes are equivalent to the traditional manufactured homes, which are a totally different level of design and quality when you compare them to some of the modern prefab homes. And we are starting to see over the last couple of years in, for example, architectural magazines, beautifully designed prefab homes. They have the same sturdiness and quality as site-built homes, and they're in fact, looked at by financing sources the same way, et cetera. So it's not the same as manufactured homes. So that's one issue. I think you also have, from the contractor's perspective, contractors, there's kind of a lot of finger pointing here. The contractors, some feel that the architects and the engineers are not adequately enabled prefab in terms of how they start out looking at a project and when they suggest their design solutions. And then you have some more systemic issues, and I think a lot of design professionals point to the fact that there's a shortage of prefab facilities close to the projects where their owners are doing the projects. So when you sort of take all these issues, there, like I said, there's some circularity and some finger pointing, but clearly there are obstacles that need to be addressed. And thankfully they are, and you're part of the solution by putting together this amazing conference where people can provide education.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for that. Well, Salla, how do you see that? Because Microsoft, you see a lot of different kind of companies, and you work together with the different kind of companies. Which barriers do you see which we're facing right now?
Yeah, it's similar barriers as what Robert said, that people still confuse prefabrication with something that is a trailer park. So of course, if there is a need for creating very affordable homes, the quality might not be something that you see in the most expensive homes, but prefabrication is a industrialized construction method, and I think that overall there is still lack of understanding the terminology in the industry. So there is an education curve that needs to happen with us that have already worked in the industry for decades, and now learning about this new way of construction. But that's where the opportunity for digital storytelling comes. And now with the emerging technology and improving technology of extended reality, it bridges that gap. That now the prefabricators, they can actually engage their customer and their stakeholders that are part of the same project into experiencing the project in digital format, and that way deal with the bias that might exist, and show them what does the quality of a prefabricated building look like, what does it feel like. The extended reality can enable people to have that emotional reaction and explain their feelings about it. And overall, I think that that's the opportunity, that more we can use and leverage technology for getting people to discuss and share their knowledge, share their thoughts, share their bias, we can overcome the people side hurdle. But then when it comes to the technology and the actual prefabrication, like Robert said, there is more room for growth in different regions. So I've heard the same stories that the facilities don't necessarily exist where there are construction boom currently happening. So overall, I see that as a business opportunity for the built environment industry here in the United States.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think so we have a lot of positive things. We have a little bit of barriers that we need to tackle. So how is it still possible that the construction industry is that much working in silos? Are we going to break them really in the near future, do you think? What do you see?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know how to say it in Dutch, but when you think of the word property in German, it's what, Immobilien, which literally means unmovable, right? But when you look at building and construction, it's very complex. And the way I see it, there are actually a lot of many moving parts, right? Knowledge is essentially siloed out, as you said. So you've got the designers, the engineers, the builders, the fabricators. Everyone has different expertise, and the processes don't always play well together, especially if there's insufficient communication. So this has always been one of the main issues, generally speaking, in construction, but it's actually, I think, one of the positives for the growth of prefab, because I think The key is, obviously, you have to improve communications, the people issues that Salla eloquently mentioned earlier. You've got to create a framework through the technology that enables all the constituents to be on the same page and have transparency around what everyone's doing at all times. Which building materials and components are being built? Where are they physically? What is the scheduling? Where are they going to be when they're supposed to be? And all of this, by the way, is the foundation of our company, Tech Prefab, because we have basically taken a view of prefab that it has to be even more tech-driven. We all knew the reasons that were discussed earlier of why prefab is going to grow as a percent of construction, but we recognized in our company the need to optimize those processes. So we created a cloud-based collaboration platform called BIMport. And BIMport links all these silos. So the designers, the owners, the fabricators, and the contractors are communicating in real time. There's just one example. That's how we kind of approach this concept of breaking down the silos and getting people on the same page because they need to be on the same page.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, that's amazing. So how do you see that, Salla, the BIM and the digital twin that people talk about? What are you the most excited about right now?
Personally, what I'm most excited about is that we now have the capability of bridging BIM tools with Azure Digital Twins, and it's a different framework amongst the digital twins, how we think about digital twins in the built environment industry, but it's opening up completely new ways of managing the data, managing the information, bridging the silos if they're not ready to be broken down. But at least now we have a method of connecting the different stakeholders and get them to share their side of the story. There is so much deep industry knowledge that needs to be brought to attention when we are delivering the future built environment, that the technology is truly helping us tell that story and pick on things before they become issues and prevent them from becoming problems down the years. So I'm personally super excited about that bridge, BIM to Azure Digital Twins, and BIM being a component of digital twins as a methodology and framework overall.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, we started day number 3 with a professor at the University of Eindhoven, and he talked about also the future of construction, the future of building. And he said, well, you have a lot of reports on the different kind of industries and how they rank on how they innovative they are. And then construction is, well, at the bottom, well, nearly at the bottom of those lists. So, and when I think of Microsoft, well, you are like really innovative. But why is Microsoft likely to help the build industry?
Well, we are a platform company here to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. So thinking about the built environment industry and how it is affecting everyone who lives on this planet, it's only natural that we are providing our support for the industry and helping the solution developers create the solutions that then fit the industry need at the moment.
Yeah, and Robert, what have you seen happening in the industry since the pandemic hit? Because maybe a lot of things are changing right now.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a really interesting time. I mean, what you've seen during this period, and obviously for negative underlying health reasons, was I think it just generally opened up people's eyes to reimagine how we live, how we work, how we play. I mean, you have the whole, work from home phenomenon that will certainly remain to some degree in terms of employers' flexibility with their workforces. And how people live and how people reevaluating how they're spending their leisure time, and vacations, and where they go and how far. But it definitely has sped up the adoption of technology throughout the real estate. So, I mean, just as an example, the idea of a virtual closing where everything is done electronically with e-docs and e-signatures, I think this would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. I mean, we are, until recently, a very traditional and conservative industry. When it comes to our segment of the industry, construction, it's certainly highlighted, the pandemic, many of the benefits of prefab specifically, because look, here in the US, the job sites were shut down pretty early on in the pandemic, and then, you have projects that are still being delayed. And then as time went on, it was deemed, construction was deemed as an essential industry. So the projects, shutdowns were abated. But construction, when you look at all of the issues related to COVID, like social distancing and so forth, there are a lot of challenges. And I think many of those challenges can be solved by prefab. Of course, we hope that we're not going to have any more pandemics. And so, but it opened people's eyes up to, wait, there's a different way to work. You don't have to have a congested, a site where people need all this space to stage all the materials, et cetera, and so forth. And so I think it definitely opened up people's eyes, to working in different ways, and working with prefab is one way to solve a lot of the issues that got highlighted during the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think so too. So, last question that I have for both of you is: what would your advice be to, the industry on how to start? Salla, can you start? What would your advice be?
Yeah. My advice would be to start looking into the digital building lifecycle and starting to develop the digital building lifecycle strategy for the individual companies and organizations, so that we no longer keep ourselves in the traditional silos, but we start bridging more of the teams together and bridging the organizations and companies together. There's very little secrets in the built environment industry. The industry has existed for thousands of years, so everyone knows how to build a building and how to design it. So now I'm hoping that with technology we can start communicating more and sharing more of how we can start resolving the age-old problems of productivity and profitability. And I think that the digital building lifecycle has a lot to offer for that.
Yeah, Robert, what is your advice for the industry?
Well, I agree with what Salla said, and I know that she's playing a big role in this. I've read a whole series of her writing about the entire digital life cycle, of which the construction is just one element of it. So education is a very important thing. I would recommend for owners who are considering doing their next project and want to see how it might work using prefab, work with a prefab company. Prefab companies can do or should be doing detailed feasibility analysis, so you can get a full picture of what the life cycle of the construction phase, right, of a real project would look like in terms of cost, schedule, actual systems and materials, and you could see exactly what it is that you could be building, how long it will take, what the costs are going to be, where the different materials are coming from, and compare that. And if it compares favorably to your conventional on-site construction, and quite often it will, then I would recommend to consider going forward with it, because frankly, success breeds success, right? The more successful projects that are completed in this way collaboratively, where expectations are predicted and then managed and met, the more other people are going to start executing their projects this way. And I think that if more project owners embrace prefab, the industry together can establish more standards. And I think that's a very important part of the puzzle here, because whether it's the building components or the way the components are combined together, if you have less unique parts, right, just like with any manufactured products, there's less unique parts floating around. This means you can have a lot more efficiency and cost savings and for more projects in the long run. It doesn't mean that creativity needs to be stifled, because there's so many ways to use those parts. And that's where the art of the architect and the designers come in. But I think those are some of the things. The more projects, the more success, the more confidence it will give to owners and to the other constituents and members of the construction ecosphere to move forward with projects in this way.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, we had an architect also talking about prefab and modular design, and he also said the same thing, because we can do a lot with the same kind of elements and still be creative. So thank you very much for both of your insights, Salla and Robert. Enjoy your day there in the United States. We are here at the end of our afternoon, so we have one more session left at day 3. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you so much, Walter. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you for being with
Bye-bye.
us.